The HOA Karen looked at my disabled daughter's chalk drawing with angry eyes. She yelled about neighborhood rules. Then she grabbed rocks from our garden and threw them at my little Emma. Big mistake. She didn't know I was a Navy SEAL. Before watching full video, comment below from where you watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. The hot driveway felt warm under my boots as I knelt beside Emma's wheelchair. Her small hands shook a little as she pointed to the colorful chalk rainbow she'd drawn over the last hour. At 7 years old, my daughter could draw very well, which was amazing since her muscle disease put her in a wheelchair when she was 5. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, looking at the bright colors she mixed so well. Emma smiled big, and for a moment I forgot about all her daily struggles, doctor visits, therapy sessions, and her fight to have a normal life. "Do you think the neighbors will like it, Daddy?" she asked with hope in her voice. "They'd be crazy not to," I said, gently touching her hair. That's when I heard it, the sharp click of heels on the pavement, coming closer with each step. After 15 years as a Navy SEAL, I could sense danger coming. I stood up slowly, putting myself between the sound and my daughter. The woman walking toward us looked like a nightmare neighbor. Her blonde hair was pulled back so tight it made her face look stretched. Her expensive sunglasses sat on her nose that looked like it had been fixed by surgery, and her lips were turned down in a permanent frown. "Excuse me," she snapped, not bothering to introduce herself. "What do you think you're doing?" I stayed calm, the same way I did during hostage situations and secret missions. "My daughter is drawing with chalk. I'm looking at her artwork." The woman, who I later learned was Patricia Wellington, the boss of our homeowners association, took off her sunglasses in a dramatic way. "This breaks HOA Rule 5.3.7, she said, like she was quoting from a holy book. "No damage to community property, including sidewalks and driveways that can be seen from the street." Emma's face fell, her happiness disappearing in an instant. "It's chalk," I explained calmly. "It will wash away when it rains." Patricia's nose flared. "Rules are rules, Mr. Commander Jackson Davis. Recently retired." I didn't offer my hand. Some habits from military intelligence never go away, never give more information than needed. "Well, Commander," she said in a mocking way, "I don't care if you're the president himself. This neighborhood has standards. I'm going to have to write you up and ask you to remove this." She waved dismissively at Emma's artwork. "Graffiti?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But Daddy said it was pretty." Patricia finally looked down to notice my daughter, her face changing from annoyed to disgusted. "Children need to learn boundaries," she said coldly. "Especially those with special needs." My jaw tightened, but I kept my cool. 15 years of discipline under pressure doesn't just go away. "We'll take care of it," I said flatly. Patricia nodded sharply, happy with her win, and turned to leave. But then she stopped, looking back at the rainbow. "It needs to be gone within the hour. The neighborhood committee is coming to my house for drinks, and I won't have them see this ugly mess." As she walked away, Emma's soft crying hurt me more than any knife ever could. "Why doesn't she like my rainbow, Daddy? I worked so hard." I knelt beside her wheelchair again. "Some people don't understand beauty when they see it, sweetheart. Let's take a picture so we can remember it, okay?" She nodded tearfully as I took several photos, capturing her artwork from every angle. The next morning, while Emma was at her physical therapy session with her mother, I decided to introduce myself properly to the neighbors. Most were welcoming. Young families, retirees, ordinary people just trying to live their lives. Everyone was friendly except when I mentioned Patricia Wellington. At her name, conversations stopped, eyes looked away, and subjects changed. Marcus, a retired teacher living 3 doors down, finally told me the truth over a beer on his porch. Patricia's husband is the mayor's cousin. She's also the HOA president, treasurer, and basically the dictator of this neighborhood. Most people just try to avoid her. "She made my daughter cry," I said quietly. Marcus winced. "Yeah, she's especially hard on families with children. Wants this to be an adult community." Filed 17 noise complaints against the Johnsons before they finally gave up and moved away. Their crime? Their autistic son sometimes had meltdowns in their backyard. I took a slow sip of my beer, thinking about this information. Interesting. 2 days later, Emma wanted to play outside again. The April weather was perfect, not too hot, with a gentle breeze that carried the smell of blooming flowers. I set up her special easel in our driveway, carefully positioning her wheelchair so she could paint comfortably. This time she was using watercolors on paper. No HOA rules broken here. We were barely 20 minutes into her painting session when Patricia's voice ruined our peace again. "What is this now?" she demanded, stomping up our driveway uninvited. I turned slowly. My daughter is painting. On paper. On our private property. Patricia's eyes narrowed as she looked at the situation, clearly frustrated at finding no obvious rule breaking. Then her gaze fixed on something behind us. Your trash cans can be seen from the street. Rule 4.2.1 clearly states all waste containers must be stored out of public view except on trash collection days. I looked where she was pointing to our garage, where the edge of one recycling bin was indeed visible. I'll move it right away, I replied evenly. But Patricia wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone and began taking pictures of our house, my daughter, her medical equipment. What are you doing? I asked, my voice getting deeper. Documenting violations, she replied smugly. Your daughter's medical equipment is an eyesore. Wheelchairs, ramps, all of it needs proper screening from street view. Emma's paintbrush stopped mid-stroke. Daddy? Am I an eyesore? Something inside me, something dark and primal that I'd kept carefully controlled since returning to civilian life, stirred dangerously. I stepped closer to Patricia, my voice deadly quiet. You need to leave our property. Now. She smirked, completely misreading the danger she was in. Or what, Commander? This is America, not some third-world country where you can throw your weight around. Patricia, I said, my tone conversational despite the rage building inside me, I've faced terrorists who showed more humanity than you're showing right now. Final warning, leave. Maybe something in my eyes finally registered because she took a step back, though her sneer stayed firmly in place. Expect official HOA notices, she threatened before turning to leave. As she walked away, she paused by Emma's special bicycle that was parked near our mailbox. With a hateful glance back at us, she deliberately kicked it over, sending it crashing onto the pavement. Oops, she said with fake innocence. Shouldn't leave obstacles in the walkway. Another violation. Emma's heartbroken cry moved me to action. I started toward Patricia but stopped myself, remembering my daughter was watching. Instead, I knelt beside Emma. It's okay, sweetheart. We can fix the bike. I gently wiped her tears. Why don't you go inside and help Mommy with lunch? I need to have a grown-up talk with our neighbor. After making sure Emma was safely inside with my wife Sarah, I approached Patricia, who was now standing at the edge of our property, typing furiously on her phone. You made a mistake, I said quietly. She looked up, annoyed at the interruption. Excuse me? In my career I've studied people. Learned to recognize patterns. Predict behaviors. I maintained a casual tone, hands relaxed at my sides. And you, Patricia Wellington, are a textbook bully. She scoffed. I'm protecting property values and community standards. No, I corrected her. You're making up for something empty inside yourself by using power over others. Classic insecurity behavior. Her face turned red. How dare you analyze me? Do you know who my husband is? I don't care if he's the reincarnation of George Washington, I replied calmly. You kicked over my disabled daughter's special bicycle, equipment that costs thousands of dollars and is essential for her limited movement. You called her medical necessities eyesores, where she could hear you. Patricia's eyes darted around, suddenly aware we were alone. I didn't. You did, I cut her off. And here's what happens next. You will apologize to my daughter. You will personally ensure that no HOA rules interfere with any accessibility equipment she needs. You will never again speak to her in anything less than a completely respectful tone. She recovered her confidence. Or what? You'll report me to the HOA I run? Call the police department where my brother-in-law is a captain. I smiled then, not a warm smile, but the kind that had made hardened terrorists reconsider their life choices. Patricia, I spent 15 years doing operations you'll never read about in history books. I have skills you can't imagine and contacts in places you've never heard of. I don't need police or HOAs to make your life extremely uncomfortable. Fear flashed across her face before she covered it with indignation. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you consequences, I clarified. Now, about that apology to my daughter. This conversation is over, she snapped, turning to leave. Expect maximum fines for every violation. I watched her leave, my mind already making plans. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning I was enjoying coffee on our front porch when I noticed Patricia in her yard across the street and 2 houses down. She was directing a landscaping crew with bossy gestures, pointing at plants that didn't meet her standards. I watched her for several minutes, noting her interactions, her body language, the submissive way the workers responded to her demands. Intelligence gathering, old habits die hard. My attention shifted when I heard Emma's voice behind me. "Daddy, can I do more painting today?" I turned to see her hopeful face. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll set up your easel right here on the porch." As I helped Emma get ready with her watercolors, I watched Patricia finish yelling at the landscapers and go into her house. Perfect timing. "I'm going to talk to some neighbors," I told Sarah, who had joined us with her own coffee. "Get a better feel for the community." She gave me a knowing look. "Just remember we have to live here, Jack." I winked at her. "Best behavior. Promise." Over the next 2 hours, I had friendly conversations with several neighbors, strategically gathering information while establishing myself as approachable and reasonable. When I casually mentioned Patricia Wellington, I wasn't surprised by the responses: fear, frustration, resignation. The Millers had been fined because their son's service dog had barked at a delivery person. The Gonzalez family had received violations for traditional Christmas decorations that were culturally inconsistent with neighborhood aesthetic standards. Elderly Mr. Chin had been reduced to tears when Patricia demanded he remove the memorial garden for his late wife because personal shrines weren't permitted in front yards. By mid-afternoon I had what I needed: a pattern of discriminatory enforcement, targeted harassment, and evidence of Patricia using HOA funds for personal expenses, a financial trail leading to landscaping of her own property, and a suspiciously well-timed kitchen renovation after a special assessment for community improvements. I was reviewing my notes when Sarah called me inside. "Jack, you need to see this." She was holding Emma, who was sobbing uncontrollably. "What happened?" I asked, immediately alert. Sarah's face was tight with anger. "Show Daddy what you found on your easel, honey." Emma held out a crumpled paper. It was her painting from earlier, a beautiful picture of our new home, but now with angry red letters written across it: "Cripples don't belong here." My vision actually blurred for a moment as rage surged through me. "When?" was all I could manage. "I set up a security camera after yesterday," Sarah said grimly. "It's Patricia. I have it on video." The footage was clear. Patricia had approached our porch while we were all inside having lunch, deliberately wrote the message, then walked away with a satisfied smirk. "Call the police," Sarah urged. I shook my head slowly. "Her brother-in-law is a captain, remember? This needs a different approach." That evening, after Emma was asleep, I made several phone calls to former colleagues who owed me favors. Within hours, I had detailed financial records of the HOA accounts, Patricia's personal finances, and even recordings of HOA meetings that had mysteriously lost their official minutes. The pattern was worse than I'd suspected. Patricia had been systematically targeting families with children, especially those with disabilities or from minority backgrounds. The financial misuse was extensive and carefully hidden. By morning I had a comprehensive file. Not just on Patricia's HOA abuses, but on her husband's questionable business practices, her brother-in-law's buried complaints for excessive force, and the mayor's cousin's involvement in zoning changes that mysteriously benefited their family investments. It was time for a different kind of operation. I began with the neighbors, quietly organizing them, sharing evidence, building coalition. Many were initially reluctant, too intimidated by years of Patricia's reign. But when I showed them the video of what she'd written on my daughter's painting, something changed. Fear turned to outrage. Resignation to resolve. Next, I contacted a journalist friend at the regional newspaper, the kind who had built her career on exposing local corruption. The promise of exclusive access to financial records showing misuse of HOA funds was too tempting to resist. Finally, I reached out to a disability rights lawyer who specialized in housing discrimination. The documentation of Patricia's targeted harassment of families with disabled members, including her written slur against my daughter, had him practically salivating. The trap was set. Now we just needed the target to step into it. The opportunity came sooner than expected. The next afternoon, as Emma and I were in the driveway adjusting her repaired special bicycle, Patricia marched up our walkway, waving a stack of papers. "Official HOA violations," she announced triumphantly. 17 in total. "You have 48 hours to fix them or face daily fines of $200 per violation." I accepted the papers with a calm smile. "Thank you for delivering these personally, Patricia. While you're here, I wonder if you'd look at something Emma made for you." Confusion flashed across her face as I wheeled my daughter forward. Emma held up a large envelope. "It's an invitation," she explained innocently. Patricia reluctantly took it, her suspicion evident. She tore it open and pulled out a formal-looking document. As she read, her face drained of color. This is..." A notice of class action lawsuit against you personally and the HOA board for discrimination, harassment, and financial misconduct, I confirmed pleasantly. Signed by 27 households in this neighborhood. She looked up, her eyes wild. You can't do this. I haven't done anything wrong. I reached into my pocket and held up my phone, playing the video of her vandalizing Emma's artwork with her hateful message. We have everything, Patricia. The financial records. The selective enforcement. The targeted harassment. The embezzlement. That's private information, she spluttered. Actually, HOA records are legally required to be available to all members, I corrected her. And financial crimes don't enjoy privacy protections. Her face twisted with rage. You think you can intimidate me? My husband is already being investigated for his role in the zoning changes that mysteriously benefited your investment properties, I finished for her. As is your brother-in-law for buried excessive force complaints. She took a step backward. This is harassment. No, Patricia, I said softly. This is consequences. Something inside her snapped. With a shriek of fury, she lunged forward, not at me but at Emma. Before I could react, she grabbed a handful of decorative rocks from our garden bed and hurled them directly at my daughter. Years of combat training took over. I moved between them in an instant, shielding Emma with my body as the rocks struck my back. In one smooth motion, I swept Patricia's legs out from under her, taking her to the ground with professional efficiency, careful to use only the necessary force to neutralize the threat. Daddy! Emma screamed. Call 911, I instructed her calmly, maintaining my hold on Patricia, who was thrashing and spitting beneath me like a cornered animal. By remarkable coincidence, a police cruiser happened to be driving by at that exact moment. Officer Miguel Rodriguez, whose son had been targeted by Patricia for setting up a basketball hoop in their driveway. He pulled over immediately, taking in the scene with professional assessment. Commander Davis? He called, approaching cautiously. Officer Rodriguez, I acknowledged. This woman just assaulted my disabled daughter with rocks. Multiple witnesses present, and the incident is recorded on our security cameras. Patricia's struggles intensified. He's lying. He attacked me. Do you know who my brother-in-law is? Rodriguez's expression remained professionally neutral. Ma'am, please calm down. We'll sort this out. Within minutes, several neighbors had gathered, all offering statements about witnessing Patricia throw rocks at Emma. Sarah emerged from the house with the security footage already queued up on a tablet. As Rodriguez reviewed the clear evidence, his professional demeanor hardened. Patricia Wellington, you're under arrest for assault on a minor, made worse by targeting a disabled person. A hate crime under state law. You can't do this to me, she screeched as Rodriguez calmly read her rights. Do you know who I am? Yes, ma'am, I do, Rodriguez replied evenly, securing handcuffs around her wrists. You're the person who told my 10-year-old son that Mexican children shouldn't play basketball where people can see them. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence as Patricia was escorted to the police cruiser, still spewing threats and invoking her connections. As Rodriguez opened the rear door, I stepped forward. Officer, may I have a word with Ms. Wellington before you take her away? Rodriguez hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. I approached the police car and leaned down to Patricia's eye level. Remember when I told you I've studied people, learned to recognize patterns, predict behaviors? I spoke just loudly enough for her to hear. I knew exactly how this would end the moment you kicked over my daughter's bicycle. Her eyes widened with the sudden realization that everything, from the gathering of evidence to her final damning assault, had unfolded according to a plan. You set me up, she whispered. I straightened, shaking my head. No, Patricia. You did this to yourself. I just made sure there were consequences. As Officer Rodriguez closed the door and drove away with our neighborhood tyrant securely in custody, I turned back to where Emma waited in her wheelchair, her eyes wide. Is the mean lady going to jail, Daddy? She asked as I knelt beside her. Yes, sweetheart, I replied gently. She made some very bad choices. Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking about this. Then she looked up at me with those wise eyes that had seen too much struggle for someone so young. Do you think she might learn to be nicer in jail? I smiled, touched by my daughter's ability to hope despite everything. I don't know, honey. But what I do know is that she won't be hurting anyone in our neighborhood anymore. Sarah joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. How about we celebrate with some chalk art on the driveway? She suggested. I think a rainbow would look perfect right about now. As neighbors began approaching, many introducing themselves properly for the first time, free from Patricia's shadow, Emma beamed. "Can everyone help with the rainbow?" she asked hopefully. And that's how, on a beautiful spring afternoon, our new community finally became a true neighborhood, with children and adults of all abilities working together to create the most magnificent chalk rainbow our street had ever seen. The HOA, under new leadership, promptly revised its rules to accommodate accessibility equipment and children's play structures. The journalist's exposé led to a full financial audit and criminal charges for embezzlement. Anne Patricia Wellington, denied bail due to the hate crime charges, had plenty of time in her jail cell to think about the consequences of throwing rocks at a Navy SEAL's disabled daughter. Sometimes justice wears combat boots.